So this is the video that didn't want to be made. Hey, I'm Jabbo, the channel's BrickTsar. We're going to be talking about the Lego variants. I got my color chart up here. I'm going to take this from a different perspective than just about everybody else. We will be talking about this on the A Fool podcast over on Brick Train's channel. So be sure to check that out. And one thing before I get into this, the most important thing, this is a YouTube tip. The most important thing about any YouTube video that you make is that you have good audio. I have spent almost 2 hours trying to make this video. I have run into so many problems, and I'm going to cry if the audio doesn't work on this attempt at the video. So we're going to be talking about the variants, and I wanted to bring out my 2x4 color chart. I have over 100 different colors in the 2x4 brick with the Lego logo on them. There's also others, and I have some of the others that have the test markings on them, the F's or the B's or whatever they are. I don't care about collecting those, the bare test bricks. But anyway, this video is not really about those. It's about variants. And we're going to talk about some other things that people have asked questions about, even if it's not related to the variants. And so just looking through, I've had so many questions. I had one by email. I can't pull up the email now, but it was one of the variants is the chair, the minifigure chair. The new ones have a sprue. Sometimes they don't. The old ones never had the sprue. That little round mark on the chair. You know, there's a value difference with those, especially if you're trying to complete an older set and you want the older chair. There can be, it's not as significant as a bit, you know, four or five times the cost. But when you're talking a few cents, it's not too terribly bad. But there's other things I think people are concerned about in trying to piece together vintage or older sets. But anyway, let's look at some of the questions from YouTube. We got Cut the Craggle. Hey, Cut the Craggle. He says, how do you feel about Bricklink announcement that they'll be merging hundreds of listings for parts that have multiple variations? And then we got another one from, I'm scrolling down here. I got so many questions. It's good. Eric Kubart asked another similar question. I was wondering about your thoughts on the new changes that Bricklink are implementing on the 15th of February. Hopefully this video goes out before then. I noticed specifically the clear bricks are being affected by grouping old and new together, and then thought of you and others who would want the older parts when trying to piece together an older set. Anyway, he was curious what I thought. So I got some of the clear bricks here. One of the main variations is the frosted. We're going to talk about that. And then I got one more related comment here. If I can find it. I had so many. Raider Nations, what do you think about the Bricklink catalog part variation consolidation? They are combining parts like old classic space torsos and their re-released counterparts. So that one is one that I think would affect a lot of people. But anyway, this is BrickTsar's channel. I'm different. I wear a different shirt every day. Not necessarily a shirt that says different. That was BrickTsar's idea. So, yeah, so I actually sell these shirts on Teespring or something, whatever that is. But let's talk a little bit about it. And I think a lot of people that have posted about it, it's overwhelmingly negative about the consolidation. I think it's not as big a deal as some would think it would be. And if I had posted about this the day I found out about it, which was around January 10th, I probably would have had the knee-jerk reaction and been very upset. And I was upset because one of the items they showed on there was the tile with the groove and without the groove. Like, I thought, those are two different parts to me. It's like, why would you consolidate those? They're clearly different. But then I got to thinking about a part that I recently got for the Santa Fe, the 1x2 grill. Sometimes those have lips, sometimes they don't. And I was like, oh, is that important to me? Well, it might be for the older sets. But in the end, it's, I don't know sometimes in modern sets which ones it's going to have. So there's variations like that. And then the question here about the classic space torsos. Well, I think that is going to more affect the modern re-releases than the old versions because they'll never make the old version again. But there were different variations between the re-releases, like that was in the re-release of the Galaxy Explorer, the minifigure pack. There's some slight differences, I should say, with those. If it's important to you that you are piecing together the original Galaxy Explorer, you would want to have the vintage minifigures, and they've never made that before. And if they consolidate all that into one listing, it would be hard to buy that. But the sellers can mark it on there. And to be honest with you, I think some people have been kind of dishonest, whether it be on eBay or other sites, in that they're selling the classic space torso that's in modern sets, but presenting it as if it was the older one, which and it's not. And you can clearly tell the old one from the new one. This microphone. I hope this works. But the thing I want to talk about is this is the perspective I'm taking from on this whole consolidation of variations, is that there are more variations than you know about. I'm talking about you. And I'm talking, and when I say you, I mean everybody watching this video. You may think you know about all the variations. I thought I knew about variations. I got stuff, because of this, I found out in my store that there were variations that I wasn't even aware of. And I still don't know all of them. And I know you don't know all of them. And if you don't know about them, you probably didn't care about them. So that's what I'm talking about. And I'm going to start with the most common types of elements in the Bricklink catalog. The thing that is the original thing with Lego, and that is bricks. It's specifically the 2x4 brick, part 3001. Lego doesn't differentiate themselves all the different molds and variations of the 2x4 brick. If you were trying to piece together a vintage set, let's say something from the 60s, those bricks are different than bricks produced today. In the 70s, there's some differences. But once you get to the 80s, it gets much more harder to tell them a difference. Now, the one thing with the 80s, I think they still had that vintage satisfying crunch when you put the bricks together. But if you're piecing together a set from the 80s, would you care that your bricks were made in 2024? You might, but how are you going to know? And what's the cutoff? Is it the 90s? Is it the early 2000s? Is it the 2010s? I don't know what the cutoff is. And there's not like a few variations. There's not a dozen variations. There's not 100 variations. There are probably thousands of variations. Thousands. So are you going to worry about it in your... If you're piecing together, I give you an example, the cafe corner or any of the early modulars. So if you're these things are like, they're getting close to 20 years old. In 3 years, the cafe corner will be 20 years old. It's 17 years old this year. And the greengrocer and the Market Street, those are ones that people try to piece together. There are some elements they still haven't made that were either exclusive to that set or they were rare at the time. Lego hasn't made those. Like in the cafe corners, there's 1x2 arches, the skis, the white skis, and then in the greengrocer, those 1x2 bricks with the slide in them that are in sand green. But if you're piecing together any of those sets, are you worried about your 1x8 bricks, your 1x6 bricks, your 1x4 bricks, your 1x2 bricks, that they are not made in 2007, 2008, or 2009? Do you care that those bricks were made in 2024? You probably don't. I guarantee you don't. There might be one person out there that's crazy, but those bricks are different than the ones that came in the cafe corner. I guarantee you they're different. I haven't looked into it, but there's so many different variations of the bricks. I've noticed some of the color differences with modern bricks compared to even a few years ago. So I'm not even really talking about the color variations, but that's a whole nother thing. Like you get some of these yellows, like yellow and light gray. There's a lot of variation in colors, even within the same pack, a set that you get. There'll be some, you'll see some differences. They just like, where's the quality Lego? So, but I'm talking also about the actual molding, the thickness of the walls of the bricks, the numbers that are stamped on the other side. You know, I think they used to put like a date or a code that you could figure out, like when a brick was printed. I don't care to look at that. This one says 7776. So it had, yeah, there's so many different things like that. To me, the main differences with the bricks are the old ones and the new ones. Whether they're have the cross supports, but there's a cross support underside the brick, or not. And then with the old ones, you had some that had pat pending marked on them, and some that had the pat pending marked out, and then some that didn't have pat pending at all in there, or the mark out. So they've never really differentiated some of those variations on Bricklink anyway. They did the old and the new with the cross supports, but not all the different pat pending variations. So if you wanted those, you pretty much had to ask people, or you just found them in random lots. And they're not significantly more valuable or anything, so it's not really that big a deal. But if you're trying to piece together a vintage set, like I did this this one, see if I can pick this up without dropping it, the Schmidt and Company. Now, the one thing, the easiest way for me to tell vintage parts that are bricks is, or even plates, is if they got a sprue on the side of the brick. It looks like an imperfection on the brick. Now, none of the modern bricks have those imperfections. So if you, that's the only, to me, if it was important to you that you were close to the correct period, you'd want that sprue. But even so, this set came out in 1976. Would it be incorrect to have parts that came out in 1974 on it? Like the arches or something? It's like, or the train track that started in the 1966. Is there a difference between the blue rails from 1966 and the ones from 1976? I don't know. You don't know either. But the variations on these bricks, it's Bricklink on the 3001, part 3001, it says there are a dizzying number of variations. And yeah, I'm not about to start to collect all those things. It might be a fun thing to do, see how many different varieties you could get. If you go into the Samsonite, if you just buy a Samsonite lot, you can find hundreds of different variations of Samsonite bricks because they did not have quality control. The way the Lego logo is oriented on the studs is there's probably thousands of just those types of variations. Because with 8 studs on a 2x4 brick, and then you can turn one this way, that way. I mean, yeah, it's crazy how many variations there are. And then with all the colors, I've struggled with my color chart because Lego doesn't differentiate when they change a color slightly if they still think it's the same color. And this is something R.R. Slugger mentioned in his video with the trans, I think it's the trans orange or neon, it's trans neon orange. The new one is different than the old one. Another prime example is pearl gold. And somebody's got a pearl gold 2x4 brick for sale on Bricklink. There's only one available right now. There's been a couple that have sold. It's $60 right now. I don't have a pearl gold brick, but that pearl gold of today is different than when pearl gold first came out. And there are some quality issues with the original pearl gold. They break. The early pearl gold plates are easy to break, and kind of like with dark red and reddish brown. I don't know if Lego has really fixed those. We won't really know until a few years. If bricks from the last couple of years aren't breaking in 2020 or 2030, maybe they have fixed that problem. So that's the other thing. The materials that these bricks are made out of has changed over the years. And as they get more into the plant-based products that they're using to make these bricks, there's going to be differences. So it may get to the point where they're so bad that, yeah, if you're piecing together a set made from today, you wouldn't want bricks from 2030, but we'll see when that comes. But one of the questions also mentioned about the frosted, or the other variation. That's the thing they're combining, is the frosted and unfrosted with the translucent colors. And it's one of those things I didn't even, until I started doing this color chart, I never really paid attention to the frosted or unfrosted. And I have the ones that are frosted here. I have the yellow, the blue, and the red. And I wonder, I don't have a trans clear frosted. I wonder if there's a trans clear frosted 2x4. I probably should add that to my collection. Might be hard to find that. I don't even know they made it. But in the end, they're not really, it's not really extremely, no. I mean, I can see it. But is that a process of how the mold was made? Was it intentionally frosted? Is a opaque color, is it frosted because of the way the mold was made? You just can't see it because it's a color you can't see through. I know some people have sold some of these red variations where if you shine a bright light, they glow like they're see-through. I don't think that counts as a variation, but people sell these things for crazy amounts of money on Bricklink or other sites. So there's just, as the listing for 3001 says, there's a dizzying number of variations, and I can't begin to even want to do that. And again, there may be people that try to get all those different things. I know there's people that collect all the different marbled bricks. Those aren't even official. Those are things that Lego employees made. But if you if you weren't worried about it, why worry about it now? So some of the changes they're making are with, I think, minor parts that aren't really that important. There may be things in the future that I'd be like, yeah, that kind of upsets me. But in the end, it's up to you. If you're doing your personal collection, how you want to collect it, and if those things are important to you, you will know which ones are important to you, and you can determine for yourself. And then if you're buying them, it will be a little harder. You'll have to ask people what they actually have. You have to look for pictures. But in the end, I don't think it's that big a deal. Maybe an unpopular opinion. I can, I'll see. Depending on what they consolidate in the future, it may change my view of it. So thanks to everybody that's in the last several months. It's the one thing that people have been asking me the most about is this. All right, we'll take a few other questions. So I had to make sure my audio. I think my audio has worked at least for that section of the video. So I got more questions, and let's look at those. Oh, look, since I did my list, I got another question. This is from 78 the Meat, who asked, "What are your thoughts on the consolidation?" Yeah. So again, it's like those questions just keep coming in here on YouTube, email, and other things. So, and this is another recent question I just got. This is from BrickTsar. He says, since the Lego Super Chief car and engines were produced until July 31st, 2005, does that mean that there are copies of those sets from late in production that came in the bluish grays instead of the old grays? I don't think so. And again, that's another thing. Lego didn't care about the color changes because I know there are sets. I don't know about the Super Chief, but I know there are sets that have bluish grays and regular old grays in them. One of the Super Star Destroyers came like that. And there may be some other examples, but I know I was mad about it at the time. Well, when they announced it that they were changed, that was, if YouTube existed, you talk about people being upset. That was when they announced the color change. All these classic space guys and classic castle people were pretty upset about the change because it made it hard when you were expanding your builds that you made. Now you got a totally different color, and the color is never going to be available again. So upset some people. But I don't know about the Super Chief. I doubt it. I think the production, or that it was available for sale to 2005, was probably things that were already produced. Let me know if somebody's ever gotten a Super Chief car set or the locomotive that had those. Let me know. I don't think it's on the Bricklink inventory, so I don't think it was. Let's look at some other questions that we have. Wow. One, it's funny. This is a comment from pre-war, post-war, and more. He said, "Did you try turning it on and off again?" So when I was having the microphone problems, not related to his question, but yeah, I was trying that a lot today, or yesterday, as I was filming attempting to film this video. So let's find some questions. Where are my questions? Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to search for hashtag bat. Hashtag bat is how you are more likely to get a response from me. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, we got one from Mayo. He says, "Why does Joey, Earl, and yourself insist on Bricklink Studios being film studios?" Lol. I did. I got a train table that's right to my right here, and then the Bricklink store on the other side of the train table. And I set up my camera on the train table, and where you can see part of the Bricklink store in the background, so I wouldn't be that kid that's doing his own thing. If you watch Sesame Street, you know what I'm talking about. So I try to be consistent, but just for fun. But yeah, I think the main reason you see the Bricklink store in our A-Full podcast videos is because that's our space where we can go to record videos. Got to have a private space, especially when you're on there for 2 hours like we are usually. Geology Joe asked, the total value of your comic books, is it more or less than those of the Lego? So if you'd asked me that question back in 2000, it would have been the comic books are worth more, but here in 2024, the comic books is worth far less than my Lego collection, and it's a lot smaller than it was when I moved into this house 19 years ago. We're still trying to reduce the collection. I'm not as aggressive with it as I should be. I know Earl gets on to me about it. Not because it does take up space. It still takes up space, and I was an avid comic collector until 1996 when I quit cold turkey. And just as a side note, the things in comic books that made me stop collecting are the things today that make Marvel and DC movies so bad. So the things that I didn't like that they did in the comics are things that they are doing now in the movies. This whole alternate reality stuff, or what if, or multiverse stuff, or starting over a character, reboots. I hated all that stuff. Characters that die and come back to life. That's why I didn't like the whole Death of Superman series. I didn't like what they did with Spider-Man. The thing with Spider-Man, when you brought his parents in and all this, is when I just like, okay, I'm done. And in March 1996, I said, I've had enough. So even though I was getting probably 100 to 200 comic books a month, plus whatever I bought from the old stuff when I'd go to shows and things, it's like I just gave up. I can't. I can't. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of the movies, is they're getting to those storylines that nobody liked. And so they're struggling. So go back to the old stuff. That's why vintage is best. Mayo Hosko asked, do you prefer power functions or powered up for Lego trains? And I prefer 9-volt. But the thing about the powered up is that you only have to have the one receiver. You don't have to have the battery box and the receiver, because the battery box is the receiver. So it makes it easier to add things. I don't like that. There's a lot of things I don't like about either one of them. Main thing is the batteries. And yeah, it's. I wish they'd made them more compatible with each other. Like you could connect the powered up motors or the powered up box to the power function stuff. But I can't worry about it because in a few years they're going to change it to something else. That's the one thing. They have changed their electronics and electrical things so much from the time I was a kid to now. It's like there's no, yeah, they don't connect together as well. You can't go backwards in time to older things and connect them to modern things without doing some kind of modification usually. So I don't like that they keep changing the technology, but I can't worry about it because, like I said, it will be something different. And one day oh, this is the thing. This is my concern with Powered Up is that one day you won't be able to use it. If the app goes away, you won't be able to use it. You might be, well, they got the little controller, so maybe I'm wrong about that. But anything that's app based, if the app goes away, the functionality goes away unless there's people out there that keep it alive somehow. Which, again, the community often does things better. They did it with Mindstorms. The community made improvements and hacked into things and made it better. And so I think, yeah, there'll always be those people around to keep things alive. But yeah, I don't like the app-based stuff too much. Did I say that before? A fake account asks, when will you sell your entire collection? And Geology Joe says, are your collections insured? I'll never sell them all. That's something that my estate will have to worry about. But the insurance, it's probably well underinsured, I would say. So don't set my house on fire. And yeah, so I think that catches us up on most of the question. Oh, I got one here from BrickTsar that asked about they converted their Emerald Knight to 9-volt via the tender. Let me read this question. It says, I've got the motor in the tender, so that I guess you put the 9-volt, traditional 9-volt motor. Are you talking about the 9-volt powered up or power functions motor or the 9-volt error motor? And it says, added the weighted bricks to help with the traction. I've even tried removing the piston rods, leaving only the drive rods. However, I still have issues with the train running. The problem seems to stem from either bad electric tracks or the engine getting stiff on certain sections of the track. So if you're pushing the locomotive, so you say you got the motor in the tender and you're pushing the Emerald Knight locomotive, and so you want those wheels to be free rolling. Is that what's holding your locomotive up, or you're saying that when the motor gets certain sections of the track, it's not getting electricity to the motor? I think the tracks generally aren't a problem. I have tracks that look rusted and they still work, and you can lightly clean them with something. I don't know since I haven't run into the problem much with Lego train tracks, I haven't really cleaned them. It's just smoothly, like not sanding them, but like using some type of something like the consistency of an eraser. I don't know what the best material is for cleaning Lego tracks, but you could try cleaning your tracks and your wheels. But I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is pushing that locomotive, because I don't think it was designed necessarily to be pushed without those wheels binding. Just make sure your drive rods are quartered on each side, even though it's not technically driving it. You still want them quartered because that can cause some binding. Make sure you have rubber bands on all the wheels that are touching the tracks on it. That will help with the friction in pushing it, and just make sure your gears aren't, like your axles aren't too pinched anywhere in there. Might even just rebuild the whole thing from scratch. That's what I had to do with my powered up one. It got to where it wasn't running very good, and I just rebuilt it from scratch, and it worked fine after I rebuilt it. But it's a little finicky. The Emerald Knight's a finicky locomotive. But here's an option that it may require some modifications. I've not done it, but I've seen other people do it. I think Joey from Brick Trains does something similar, where you use a 9-volt motor or something like that as the power pickup, and then you make a converter cable, and you take the power. There's a connection on the 9-volt motor where you can draw power from it. It's usually used for lights on the train, but you can take that and go to a powered function 9-volt motor. So you could have dual power with it and use it that way. So the powered up motor would draw its electricity from the 9-volt motor. So you could have both of them running. I don't might run into speed issues, consistency with the speed of those two, but that's an option. Some people have, I think, taken the motor out of the 9-volt motor and just used the pickups and use that to get to the powered up motors. And then you're powering it from the track. You're not having to use a receiver. You're just using just the motor. So that's an option. I'm sure there's a video out there somewhere of somebody doing it. Again, I've never done that, but it's definitely an option that can be done if you wanted to power it from the 9-volt rails. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for all the questions, and thank you for, I hope this video turns out. This has been the hardest video for me to make, but it's interesting that, so having talked about this with the variations about 15 times in the last 2 days to myself, I have no idea if I expressed all the things. I don't use a script in my videos, and I didn't even use an outline with this one. The only outline I had was the questions from the viewers. So I know that I've said different things each time I filmed this video, but I think the main points stick out. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, please don't be offended when I told you that you don't know all the variations, because you don't. There is nobody that knows all the variations out there, and so let's don't worry about it too much. And if it is a concern, especially with vintage parts, and I am one of those people that I want certain things to be the correct vintage, I didn't need Bricklink to do that. That's things I just determine on my, when I get a collection, I just go through my collection, and I don't worry about that. The thing that R.R. Slugger said in his video, though, that it's kind of like a database. Bricklink's a database, and they don't want the database to be corrupted, but in the end, it's not 100% correct anyway. So anyway, I'm going to go. I'll be back tomorrow in a different shirt that doesn't say different, probably. See you guys.